Hi guys, it's Ryland. Today I want to talk about some of the things that we've learned while we were not on YouTube, and just like self-discoveries and system discoveries that we've made. And these are things that I think could probably apply to a lot of systems, and honestly some of them might apply to a lot of just people with trauma and PTSD. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was inner worlds. We knew that our inner world was important, and we knew that everybody lived in different places in the inner world, but we didn't know exactly how that was significant. And the reason I got the idea for this video was actually because someone last night was talking to one of our friends who's a system about their inner world, and how where an alter lives is important and says something about them. So in our system, generally speaking, the place in the inner world where an alter lives has to do with one of two things. It's either where they feel the most comfortable and safe, or it has to do with trauma that they hold. And sometimes it can be both, which seems like it would be contradictory, but for some people their trauma is what's familiar to them, and things outside of that feel unsafe. We've started to use the label polyfragmented to describe our system. Before, I don't think we really knew what polyfragmented meant. We'd heard the term, but we didn't know what it was. And I was told that it just means a system with over 100 alters. So in that case, we fit that category. We've had up to 200 at one time in the past. I think that was the most we had. Currently, our count is around 150. But if we added up every alter we've ever had, there would be hundreds. A lot of them have integrated since then. I forget where I was going with this. We might not ever know every single alter in our system because there are so many of us, and they're still coming forward, alters from the past, that sometimes they're people that we sort of knew about. A lot of the time actually it's like these alters were around in our childhood, and like adults in our life, if we said the name, they would remember it. They would say, yeah, that was from one of your games that you would play. Oh, you used to pretend to be this person all the time when you were like 7. It wasn't pretending, because when Katie would play games like that, it was always dissociation. It was always like she just, I guess, thought that she was getting so into the game, she was so invested in it, that her imagination took her somewhere else. She got so involved in this character and then completely forgot everything that happened, and would ask her brother to re-explain what happened back to her. And she thought that was just how children played, because that was what the adults in our lives said. You just have an active imagination or an overactive imagination. We might not ever know every alter in our system, and that's something that our therapist has honestly been saying to us for years, and we were always like, I don't think you're right about that. I think we will know all of them. I think we do know all of them now, but every time that we've thought we knew all of them, it was shown to be wrong. So she probably is right, and we may never know every alter in our system, and that is a hard pill to swallow for some people in the system. For others, it's just like, okay. Because of that, because there are so many of us, and so many of us are very much trauma holders and stuck in a certain moment in the past, or stuck in a certain period of time. A lot of them don't want to be on YouTube, don't even want to talk to people in our lives, and don't feel safe to do so. And so many of them, it's taken them a long time to feel safe to even introduce themselves to the rest of the system. It's unrealistic to expect us to introduce every alter in our system, and it's unrealistic for us to even attempt to do that. Not every alter on our system has relationship or communication with the others. There are so many parts of ourselves, parts of our brain, that are strangers to me. A lot of that has to do with where we are separated in the inner world, and people who live in the same place tend to be a lot more, they can communicate more easily with each other, they can feel more safe with each other. And people for example, I live in the home space and I couldn't really communicate much with people who live in the forest or somewhere else. And then there are some areas of the inner world where we can communicate between them, but it's a little bit more challenging and we have to make more effort to communicate with, like, I could communicate with people who live in dream world, but it would take more effort than communicating with someone in the home space. But I can't communicate with somebody in layer 3 at all. Trying to explain the intricacies of our system is something that I'm not sure how many people would be interested in, since it's such a unique experience to us. But yeah, we're kind of navigating that as we go, figuring out what would be beneficial to talk about and what wouldn't. Another thing we've discovered during this time, alters really can be anything. We knew that this was true for DID and systems in general, but with our system, most of our alters were fairly normal, just people. That has changed, sort of. I mean, it hasn't changed in the sense that we have all these new alters who aren't people, or that alters we had are no longer people. It's just changed in the sense that we've learned about these alters who have always been there. We knew about one alter in particular who was a doll, and doesn't want to be spoken about. So I won't say anything beyond that, but we knew about her for a long time. But what we didn't know was that there was a group of alters like that. Which leads us to believe, since there is a group of them that are the same way, it's a lot deeper than just one alter presenting in some way. It's a group of alters that present in the same way and hold similar trauma and are all children. And it's been like that with other alters we found. All of these different types of alters that present as non-human, there's almost never just one like that. There's a group that present in that same way. And it's really like that with almost everything in our system. And I don't think anything in the system is random. I think everything, and I said this before, that everything had a reason, but I really mean it differently now, because before I meant our inner world presents generally in these different ways for a reason, and people are not on the same place in the inner world for a reason. But what it really means is every single detail of our inner world exists that way for a reason. And every detail of each alter exists that way for a reason. And every relationship between two alters and two alters who don't speak to each other, two alters who know each other well, every dynamic exists for a reason, and nothing is arbitrary. Everything is important. Our alters tend to front in cycles. So when I say that, I mean that there are, like I said, 150 of us, and maybe 5 or 10 will front very frequently for a period of time, and that period of time can be anywhere from a week to a few months, and they cycle out. So it will be generally this group of people comes out a lot, and then slowly, like, this person won't come out as much, and then this person won't come out as much, and this person will start coming out more, but these people are still there, and eventually it just keeps, like, these ones filter out and these ones filter in until there's a new group of people that's fronting all the time. And that is what happens all throughout the year, all throughout the years with us. You would think that we would pick up on that. We didn't really pick up on it. It always seemed like random, like we don't know. Some people come out, some people don't. Sometimes people front a lot more. But we started tracking who's fronting using an app called Simply Plural, and that has really made all the difference in us understanding our system, that and therapy. We can, like, look back on the history of who's been out, and we can see these alters have been coming out a lot. And we notice the patterns and the cycles, and we maybe have not really quite figured out why certain people come out more certain times. Some people come out a lot at a certain time of year and not the rest of the year as much. And we don't necessarily understand the reasoning for that yet, but I am very confident that there is a reason and that it is not just random. Integration is very different than we used to think it was. Our integration chambers, which we created sort of under a certain therapist who wanted us to all integrate and would pick and choose who was allowed to integrate. We created the integration chambers as a way to try and allow alters to choose when they integrate. But it turns out that is not how it works. Well, that's not how it works in our system, because the integration chambers was sending people off to be dormant. And we continued to use it for years before we realised that. I don't think that our therapist knew that either. I think she really thought it was working, but she didn't know anything about DID. She didn't know anything about us. She didn't know anything about how to treat a system. And she didn't know anything about how to listen to her clients either. So we have a lot of trauma from her, and this is not necessarily traumatic for me because I didn't experience it, but some of the alters who went dormant thinking that they were going to integrate and then just went to sleep for years and woke up and everything was different. I would say that was a little bit, well, a lot scary for them probably. In our system, when somebody integrates, one of two things happens. They like merge with another alter and like create a new alter, or like 3 or 4 can merge and create a new alter. Or if that's not the case and nobody's really able to merge with them, that one alter can actually break into a bunch of pieces, and those pieces can each merge with another alter. But the pieces are fragments and they're much smaller, and so it's not as, like, the other alter who they merge with won't have as big of a change from merging with them. Sometimes we can feel so disconnected from another group that they feel like an entirely different system to us. They don't actually even feel like they're part of our system. They don't feel like they come from our brain. They feel like strangers living our lives, which is what I'm sure Katie felt like when she first was discovering the DID. But now it's kind of all of us, because over the years we've grown and learned to communicate with each other and developed a system for communication and for fronting and for knowing what's happening. Yet when this new group that we're just learning about comes out, it's complete blackout for everyone involved. No being in the inner world, no co-consciousness, no concept of time passing, just blackout and wake up and you don't know why it's the next day. And that's been a bit much for us. I know that a lot of people are very disoriented from that. Our inner system relationships are extremely complex, like everything in our system. Everything in our system tends to be very structured, but if you're not part of it, it looks like chaos until you delve in and realize all the different structures and the things that are set in place to make this make sense, and none of it is random. But it is still very, very complicated, and our relationships are no different. However, they don't seem complicated to us because we're just living them. When they become complicated is when we're trying to explain them to other people. We have a gatekeeper, Orion, who actually made a huge chart of everyone in the system and their relationships to each other. I have no idea where it is, but I'm hoping to find it, and with his permission maybe I could show you guys that. I think that would be a helpful tool to kind of explain how we interact. Since we were around 6 years old, we've had insomnia, and it has never ever gone away since. We spend hours every night trying to fall asleep, and usually those hours now involve a lot of anxiety and fear, and all of our anxiety from the day builds up as soon as we try to go to sleep. As soon as we make up our mind that we're going to go to sleep, all the anxiety comes back, and flashbacks tend to start at that time. Memories, things we don't want to think about, anything that we've been not allowing ourselves to think about throughout the day, attacks at night. Our natural sleep schedule, our body's natural sleep cycle, what it always resorts back to anytime that we're not doing school or something that we have to do every single day. We sleep from around 5 a.m. to around 1 p.m. and that is our normal. And we hate it. We don't want to be sleeping from 5 a.m. to 1 p.m. We want to be awake when the rest of the world is awake. Most of the time, most of us do. 4 hours before that, from around 1 a.m. or sometimes earlier until 5 p.m. are just us laying in bed, trying to sleep, often having panic attacks, often having flashbacks, often crying, just waiting to finally exhaust ourselves until we can't stay awake anymore. And that is something that really I'm not okay with, and I don't know how to fix it. You can probably tell that we haven't been sleeping normally if you can, like, even now, we always have these dark circles. We have since we were very young, but like I said, we've had insomnia since we're very young, so it might not be that it's not from that. But right now they look a bit worse than normal. You can see they look like there's a line down the middle. That usually isn't there unless we haven't slept well. There are so many types of dissociation. Not all of them have names that I'm aware of, but they all feel very different. And recently, our dreams have been so incredibly vivid that they have felt so real to us, and our waking life has felt completely unreal. Every day, all day, we feel like everything around us isn't real. We're disconnected from our reality. This has been happening since around right before Christmas, so it's a new thing for us. Everything doesn't feel real. We feel real, sort of, but we don't feel like we're awake. We feel like we're walking through a dream all the time, except for when we're actually dreaming. And then everything feels vivid and real and important. But as soon as we wake up and start our day, we forget our dreams completely. And it's frustrating because it's so complicated because there's a fear around going to sleep. Once we go to sleep, we don't want to wake up. And often we wake up or start to wake up multiple times and decide we would rather go back to our dreams than live our life. And I know that that's not healthy, and I know that it's not normal, and I don't really know how to fix it. And it's something we're trying to talk about in therapy. But therapy's been a little bit up in the air recently because it keeps getting cancelled. Other sorts of dissociation that we didn't really recognize before. Feeling like it's a different year. Just, we'll be walking around, everything is normal, and then all of a sudden it's just this extremely strong sense that it is 2011. I don't know why, I don't know what happened in 2011, I don't know what's making me think that it is, and I know logically that it isn't, but it feels like 2011. And that's just an example because it can be any number of different years from our past. And normally this only happens when we're either outside, usually at night, or in the car at night. There's also an intense feeling of, you could call it deja vu, that goes along with that, but it's usually when everything's completely silent. And then there's this sort of deja vu sort of feeling, but it feels like you're about to remember something that happened before and then you never do. And that feeling like you're about to remember something can last for up to an hour. There's the dissociation, like I said, where everything doesn't feel real anymore, except for our dreams, which are not real and they feel real. There's dissociation where I don't feel like I exist. I'm lying on the bed. My surroundings, it's not that they don't feel real, it's that I don't even notice them. I don't feel real. I feel like I'm just hovering a couple of inches above my body and I can't move and I don't really want to, and I don't have feelings anymore. All of these things are dissociation that we experience that has nothing to do with switching, and it can happen to pretty much anyone. And there are some alters who feel it all the time, and there are others who it's a weird and unusual for them to feel it, and we don't like it and we don't know why it's happening. Like me, I normally don't experience that. For the past week or so, couple of weeks, I don't know, we have been. Those are the main things I wanted to talk about. I don't know if this video was interesting to you all or not. I got a request to talk about what it's like being a polyfragmented system, and I wanted to do that. If you are a system, polyfragmented or not, I would love it if you left a comment and said whether you related to this, what parts of it you relate to. Next week we will hopefully have another video. I plan on having either Damsel or Jake make their video next, introducing themselves, and I do also plan in the future to have authors who haven't introduced themselves before just make a completely brand new introduction, not reacting to anything. And I'll take suggestions for any other videos you guys want to see in the comments. So yeah, anyway, thanks for watching. Bye.